Before we get into the episode, let's quickly recap where things stand. Daenerys Targaryen is in Essos, gathering an army to take back the Iron Throne. Tyrion Lannister is forced into an unwanted marriage with Sansa Stark to secure Lannister control over Winterfell. Arya Stark is in the Riverlands, captured by the Hound, who plans to ransom her to her family. Stannis Baratheon and Melisandre continue using dark magic to gain power. Samwell Tarly and Gilly are on the run from the White Walkers beyond the Wall. Now, let's jump into the episode. Daenerys and the Second Sons. The episode begins in Yunkai, where Daenerys meets with the leaders of a powerful mercenary group, the Second Sons. Daenerys, Jorah, and Barristan take cover behind the ruins of a building to observe the Second Sons' encampment, a professional mercenary company hired by the Yunkish as their powerful friends. Barristan notes that while the Second Sons number only 2,000, their armor and mounted troops make them a formidable threat to the Unsullied. Daenerys instructs Barristan to arrange a meeting with the mercenary leaders, asserting that warriors who fight for gold can't afford to lose to a girl. Soon after, Daenerys meets with the captains of the Second Sons, Mero, a Bravasi known as the Titan's Bastard, and Prendal na Gezin, a Gascari. Also present is Prendal's skilled and charismatic lieutenant Daario Naharis. Mero, crude and vulgar, makes himself comfortable, compares Daenerys to a Lysine prostitute he knows, and gropes Missandei. However, the composed queen dismisses his insults. Prendal and Mero reject Daenerys' offer of an alliance, arguing that their reward depends on her reclaiming the Iron Throne, which remains a distant goal. Undeterred, Daenerys confidently points out that just 2 weeks ago, she had no army, and a year prior, no dragons. Smiling, she grants them 2 days to decide and sends them off with the barrel of wine Mero had demanded. As they leave, Daario glances back at her with a smile. Once the mercenaries are gone, Daenerys drops her polite facade, glares at Mero, and orders Barristan to kill him first if battle becomes necessary. Selmy responds that he would be more than happy to oblige. At the mercenary camp, Mero lounges with a Yunkish pleasure slave while discussing their predicament with Prendal and Daario. Prendal acknowledges that the Second Sons stand no chance against Daenerys' Unsullied, prompting Mero to propose assassinating her instead. To decide who will carry out the task, Mero hands the slave 3 coins, one from Volantis, Marine, and Bravos, and instructs her to distribute them randomly among the 3 mercenaries. The one who receives the Bravasi coin will be the assassin. That night, as Daenerys bathes, she is impressed to learn that Missandei speaks at least 19 languages. Missandei modestly remarks that this isn't unusual, considering Daenerys herself learned Dothraki in just a year. Feeling challenged, Daenerys switches to Dothraki to prove her fluency, only for Missandei to correct her pronunciation. Suddenly, an Unsullied enters, holding a knife to Missandei's throat and warning them not to scream. He removes his helmet, revealing himself as Daario. He explains that he was sent to kill Daenerys, but had a philosophical disagreement with his captains over her beauty. To prove his loyalty, he presents their severed heads. Intrigued, Daenerys rises from the bath and asks if he will swear fealty to her. Daario kneels, pledging his sword, his men, and his heart to her service. King's Landing. Tyrion and Sansa's wedding. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Tyrion is preparing for his forced marriage to Sansa Stark. Neither of them wants this, but Tywin Lannister has orchestrated it to keep Winterfell under Lannister control. At King's Landing, Tyrion speaks with Sansa before their wedding at the Great Sept of Baelor. Fully aware that she is less than enthusiastic about marrying him, he assures her that he will not mistreat her, and Sansa acknowledges that there are far worse Lannisters she could have been wed to. Meanwhile, Margaery Tyrell attempts to charm Cersei by pointing out that they will soon be sisters. Cersei coldly responds by recounting the tale of the reigns of Castamere, which tells of House Rhaen's destruction after rebelling against House Lannister. Her message is clear: House Tyrell should beware a similar fate. She ends with a chilling threat, warning Margaery that if she ever dares call her sister again, she will have her strangled in her sleep. The wedding itself is a somber affair. With Sansa's father gone, Joffrey smugly escorts her to the altar. To humiliate Tyrion, he spitefully removes the stool meant to help him cloak Sansa in Lannister colors, drawing laughter from the congregation, until Lord Tywin's scowl silences them. Instead of reacting in anger, Tyrion calmly asks Sansa to kneel, allowing him to complete the ritual. The High Septon then proceeds with the ceremony. Later, the reception dinner is just as joyless, with the newlyweds enduring yet another miserable occasion. During the wedding feast, Tyrion drowns his misery in wine, growing increasingly drunk as he mocks his father's insistence that his intoxication will make him unfit to consummate the marriage. Slurring his words, he sarcastically declares himself the god of tits and wine, and reminds Tywin that he has always called him a drunken little lust-filled beast, so fulfilling his marital duty shouldn't be an issue. Meanwhile, Joffrey also drinks excessively, shedding what little restraint he had and becoming more obnoxious. Ignoring Cersei's feeble protests, he rises from his seat, flanked by his Kingsguard, and sneers at Sansa, mocking that she has still ended up married to a Lannister. Taking his cruelty further, he coldly remarks that it doesn't matter which Lannister fathers her children, and goes so far as to suggest he might have her raped by his guards after Tyrion is finished with her. Joffrey then announces it is time for the bedding ceremony, a tradition where the wedding guests strip the bride and groom before carrying them to the marriage bed. However, Tyrion, already seething, refuses, declaring there will be no bedding ceremony. When Joffrey continues to press the issue, Tyrion snaps, slamming his dagger into the table and warning his nephew that if he doesn't drop it, he'll be fucking his own bride with a wooden cock. The room falls into stunned silence as Joffrey, livid with rage, glares at his uncle. Tyrion, unfazed, meets his nephew's fury with open defiance. Just as the situation teeters on the edge of disaster, Tywin steps in, diffusing the tension by agreeing that there will be no bedding ceremony. To pacify Joffrey, he dismisses Tyrion's outburst as the drunken ramblings of a man who has had too much wine. Seizing the opportunity to avoid punishment, Tyrion plays along, exaggerating his intoxication to the point of mockery, stumbling and slurring his words as he claims it was merely a bad joke. Though it is unclear whether anyone, including Tywin or Joffrey, truly believes Tyrion was simply drunk, the court collectively pretends to accept the explanation. With the tension finally easing, Tyrion, feigning extreme drunkenness, escorts Sansa to their bedchamber. Once alone in their chambers, an uneasy silence hangs between Tyrion and Sansa as she hesitantly begins to undress. Seeing her discomfort, Tyrion gently tells her to stop, assuring her that he will not consummate the marriage unless she wants to. He adds that he will only do so if she ever changes her mind. When Sansa nervously asks what will happen if she never does, Tyrion smirks and quips, "And so my watch begins," joking that his marriage will be as celibate as a brother of the Night's Watch. With that, he staggers to a nearby couch and promptly passes out. The next morning, Shae discreetly inspects the bedsheets. Noting the absence of blood, she smirks slightly, realizing that Tyrion's virgin bride remains untouched. Arya and the Hound. Arya, still trying to reunite with her family, finds herself in the company of Sandor Clegane, the Hound. At first, she thinks he plans to sell her to the Lannisters, but he reveals his real plan, taking her to the twins, where her mother and brother are attending a wedding. Arya initially resists, but the Hound tells her that her best chance of survival is with him. She reluctantly agrees, unaware of the Red Wedding disaster about to unfold. Why this matters. Arya's journey with the Hound is one of the most complex relationships in the series. He's not a hero, but he protects her in his own brutal way. Stannis, Melisandre, and Gendry's blood magic. At Dragonstone, Gendry arrives, captured by Melisandre. She reveals that he has royal blood, since he is Robert Baratheon's illegitimate son. She plans to use him for her magic, believing it will help Stannis win the Iron Throne. Melisandre returns to Dragonstone with Gendry in tow, but Stannis remains unimpressed by the sight of the bastard boy, his own nephew by blood. He is perplexed when Melisandre orders that Gendry be fed, bathed and clothed, considering their ultimate plan to sacrifice him. However, Melisandre explains that this is merely to keep Gendry unaware of his fate, just as a sacrificial lamb is kept calm before the blade falls. Meanwhile, Davos Seaworth, still imprisoned, receives a visit from Stannis, who informs him of the impending sacrifice. Davos strongly objects, arguing that unlike Renly, who rebelled against his rightful king, Gendry is an innocent who has done no harm. Stannis counters that the boy's death will secure his victory, something he sees as necessary to save all of Westeros from the darkness to come. He challenges Davos's doubts, reminding him of the shadowy creature Melisandre birthed, and the visions Stannis himself has seen of a great battle in the snow. Davos, however, suggests that the real reason Stannis is here is that deep down, he knows what he's about to do is wrong, and that he sought Davos out because he needed to hear the truth, no matter how unwelcome. After securing a promise from Davos not to act against Melisandre again, Stannis orders his release. In Gendry's chambers, Melisandre seduces him just long enough to lull him into a vulnerable state, but she then places leeches on his body as Stannis and Davos enter. Explaining that Davos requested proof of the power in a king's blood, She removes the leeches and tosses. As part of the ritual, Stannis follows Melisandre's direction, casting the leeches into the fire while uttering the names of those he wishes dead. The usurper Robb Stark, the usurper Balon Greyjoy, the usurper Joffrey Baratheon, Samwell Tarly versus the White Walker. In the final scene, Samwell Tarly and Gilly are traveling south when they are suddenly confronted by a White Walker. The terrifying creature walks straight toward them, unfazed by Sam's attempts to stop it. Just when it seems hopeless, Sam pulls out the dragonglass dagger he found at the fist of the First Men and stabs the White Walker. To his and Gilly's shock, the creature shatters into ice. They flee, realizing the full danger of what they're up against. Why this matters? This is the first time we see dragonglass in action, proving that it's one of the few weapons capable of killing White Walkers. Sam, often underestimated, becomes one of the first to slay one.